Welcome to One Angry Black Republican podcast. I'm your host, D. This is the podcast where morality meets extremism. Last week, we dealt with a few issues that, pretty much propelled us into this week's dialogue, specifically dealing with concepts and ideas surrounding cancel culture. Not robbery to label people in our culture that, and I'm not even going to get into the specific facts, because ultimately the purpose of this particular podcast is to talk about this egregious social mediocrity that seems to run American culture. And let's just look at some of the issues surrounding the people in the community in our country that are the most vulnerable, specifically Black people. COVID-19 exposed the fact that there is a serious problem concerning the state of Black people in America. And this reminds me of the scripture, and I don't know the specific scripture offhand, but the scripture that is the rich getting into heaven, like a camel trying to get through the eye of the needle or something like that. We have a lot of poor and disenfranchised people that are Black. In the Black community, we have some of the highest rates of infant mortality. We have some of the highest rates of poor health. We have some of the highest rates of illiteracy and housing disenfranchisement, lack of income. Our relationship to wealth has really not changed in centuries. So when COVID-19 hit, we're faced with now, when the first numbers dropped, I think they were somewhere around, the first numbers I saw, 16,000 Americans that died from COVID-19. 8,000 of those that died were Black. Now that was a year ago. And if those numbers stayed consistent, we're talking about half of the deaths relative to COVID-19 were Black. Now, I don't know how, we've seen how governments handle crisis, okay? But this is a crisis, and it has been a crisis since the beginning. And the social mediocrity that I'm speaking of is the fact that we can sprinkle things in the Black community and feel comfortable sitting in the lap of our own wealth. So you got all these wealthy people running around America. And at this point, with this whole Biden absentee president, the absentee president, okay, at least with Trump we saw, and we saw him regularly when he spoke. He held a lot of rallies. He was always giving us something. Biden's been absent for 60 days now. In 60 days we haven't heard from our president in any qualitative way. And then we are, they're always President Biden stumbles on Air Force One. It is time that we start to get creative with this government and start to make some changes that truly will lift up specifically black people in this country, because the proverbial knife is only been pulled halfway out of our back. So we got Barack Obama, first black president, and now we have a Kamala Harris, the first black female vice president, that we have seen in our country. And I remember when Barack was elected president, I cried. I saw this picture of Jesse Jackson in tears when Barack Obama became president, because we were so excited as black people. We were so excited when Barack Obama became president. I don't think there was jubilance all throughout the black community, and I was literally in Newark, New Jersey when Newark, New Jersey. I was in Newark when Barack Obama became president, and it's like the whole night you heard music, partying, all kinds of things going on, and that one little act. And I excuse me saying little act, because it wasn't a small act, it was a huge milestone. But what dawned on me when I saw that 8,000 people that died from COVID, that were black people that died from COVID, we had 8 years of a black president, 8 years of a president who could understand, empathize, because everyone can't understand and empathize with what goes on in the black community. They can't. Okay, and whether that's done strategically or not, they just can't connect. They don't understand. It's like welfare. Oh my God, why do you people want to just, why are you people so lazy and you don't want to work? When someone says that and they're white, I automatically say, this person has a lot of learning to do, because they haven't learned some things. Okay, they have no real understanding of what true empathy is, sympathizing with the realities of others. You've done no research, no real research. Black people, we get this instinctively. Okay, which is why we're always thinking in that higher consciousness place. We understand those value systems like integrity, honor, valor. When you haven't worked for anything in your life, everything's been given to you, it's difficult for you to connect with people who have to struggle from the bottom up. Ideas like reparations. Oh my God, slavery was, umpteen years ago. You're not connected with that experience. Why would you want reparations? Well, see, you don't understand something. You don't understand. Your education is flawed. You have some fundamental, flaws in your thinking when that's your perspective. You don't understand reparations. Black people understand why it's important. Well, at least many of us. There's a cadre of blacks that sit at the top of all of us. Our black elite. I don't want to call them the talented 10, but we have a black elite, and the reason I say I don't want to call them the black, the talented 10th, is because your neighbor could be a black elitist and still be and be poor right next to you. Your neighbor, could have this mindset where they think they're better than their circumstances, and spend their lives pining against their circumstances in a social manner. Okay, so you always feel like you're in a position of more influence next to you. You feel a heightened sense of, reality, a heightened sense of purpose than the person next to you. And you sitting in the same boat. Okay? You sitting in the same boat. I think, what was that movie, that book, Robinson Crusoe, where he's, stranded on an island, and, the native on the island, he's cutting down, bark and, leaves. He's making himself a living structure. He's up in the trees, getting fruit. He's doing all these things. And this guy is sitting in the sand with a Bible. And not to say that I'm speaking against religion and the importance of having a faith base, but there got to be some work done as well. Faith without works. There got to be some work. Okay, so the native is doing all the work, to make sure and ensure their survival, and he's sitting there letting the native do all of the labor. All the labor is done by the worker, or the native in this case. And that's what goes on in America. You got all these poor people, gathered in the same community or the same society. You got, that talented 10, your mayors, your council people, your county surrogates, and your lawyers, your doctors, your teachers. All of the people who, probably were first in line for a COVID shot. And I think that is another statistic that needs to be looked at. Like, how many people in the bourgeoisie were able to get that vaccine? And how many poor and disenfranchised people could not? And is that even a safe thing? Okay, do we even know the ramifications of even that shot? I mean, that might build your body's defenses for the first strand of COVID, but what about those later strands, or those hybrid strands, or those evolutionary strands that, now your body may not be able to fight against? Are you safe to be around me? Okay? So the point is here, there's a social mediocrity when it comes to, like Lincoln. Lincoln was willing to fight a war, okay, with Americans, using the government to fight a war against Americans to maintain, because he understood that concept, a house divided could not stand. If that was a principle back then, what do we think is going to happen today as our house is divided? House is divided. Okay? You got people right now who are getting ready to suffer a housing apocalypse, where people are about to lose their homes, okay, their house, their apartment. You got some people been holding on to that apartment on Stratford forever, 20, 30 years. Holding on to that apartment on 14th Ave. Holding on to that apartment on 19th Street. Holding on to that apartment on Avon. Holding on to that apartment on Hawthorne Avenue. Holding on to that apartment on Chadwick. They've been holding on to that apartment for 20, 30 years. They got, holding on to that job at McDonald's down the street. Holding on to that job at the beauty salon. Holding on to that hot dog cart. You got people who've been holding on. Talk about hold the line. You got people who've been holding on for 20, 30 years in our community. 20, 30 years, and all of a sudden, this COVID hits. And you force businesses closed. So that person who's been holding on for 30 years just lost their job. You're holding on 30 years, just lost his job. You kidding me? Just lost his job because you closed down the businesses. You elitists. The bourgeoisie, you closed down the businesses. So now he lost his job. He's working at the beauty salon. She was working at the beauty salon, washing hair. Holding on to that, apartment on Stratford. Got a kid in school. You took the kids out of school. So now she had to stay home with the kids. She had to wait 3 months, 4 months, 5 months to get an unemployment check. Still made it happen. Many of them still made it happen. Single mother, raising 3 kids. Got that job at the beauty salon that closed down. Struggling, holding on. Getting food packages, getting ShopRite cards here and there. And we look at you people and you are, eating good, eating comfortable. Kids, you invested in your future. So, you were, in school in your 20s, you had, everything was good with you. Daddy Warbucks sent you to college. Daddy Warbucks, organized the community for you. You come home. Now you good. That woman who been struggling 30 years holding on to that job, 30 years holding on to that apartment. Now she's backed up in rent. Landlord don't care. Landlord want his money. Landlord, he want his money. All he wants is his money. Talk about social mediocrity. So she backed up in rent 5 months. She been holding on, doing what? Robbing from Peter to pay Paul and sticking up Simon at the same time, just to live. That's what she been doing. And she holding on. She holding the line. We know black people have been suffering in this country. When I say things like eliminate private property, it's her I'm thinking about. That's the woman I'm thinking about when I say eliminate private property. Anybody think about that landlord? Sitting there eating good and pretty. Fresh clothes on. Every time you see him, always posting a picture on Facebook. It's your latest wares. Flowing in front of the people. Flossing. Got your big car. Big bank account, you feel good. You ain't thinking about that woman who been holding on for 30 years, that same job, because that was the stability she could create to make sure she took care of her babies. Put them in a charter school up the street, knowing that in her mind they're gonna get a better education, they're gonna, pull up the family. You don't think about them. Eliminating private property, and I got that. That idea just came to me when I was watching Ellen DeGeneres. One of our, lions of the earth. This lion walking around her entire, estate during COVID. When the whole social distancing thing was being discussed. That's 8,000 black people are being, are dying because we are all packed into close quarters. What kind of society is that? Everybody's packed into close quarters, and there's all this property around, vacant homes, vacant properties with some landlord with a title. Some landlord with a title. Got a whole house right there next to, 19 people living in one little 2-flat place. Right next door, across the whole house. But we so conditioned. To stay in our place. Ellen DeGeneres walking around this whole estate. Cause socially distanced. We got a pandemic crisis in our hands that we're dealing with. Airborne pathogens, all kind of things, and people in close. But yet, Capitalism is so structured and so organized that you can't even walk into that abandoned place and set up shop. Put a person over here in that corner, person over there in that bedroom, person over here in that bedroom. What kind of humanity is it? You'd rather die hacked on top of each other. You'd rather die hacked on top of each other as opposed to going into these structures that are there. That are there. You see, when I think about the ignorance of us and the lack of morality, the real lack of morality, because that's a lack of morality. And you got some magistrate, standing up, justifying that system. Well, you gotta pay your bills. Well, you should have invested in this, because ultimately we can't take over somebody else's property because they own it. Well, you're generous because you walk around and breathe easy, social distance on everyone on the planet. Not a person within miles, because she made a bunch of people laugh and they threw her some money, and now she gets to live in this comfortable reality and survive a pandemic, whereas that woman who's sitting in that apartment struggling to hold on to that place, 3 kids in the same apartment, some small quarter environment, breathing all over each other. Now she's backed up in rent for that small place because some landlord who's been comfortable eating well, now wants, all of the resources she's able to muster because, she owns the place. So when I say the elimination of private property, that's what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? Because if there was, if private property is eliminated, then, people can be assigned adequate quarters to live comfortably in this country that is supposedly all of ours. Okay? Reparations. Could you imagine if black people were given 40 acres and a mule, after being exploited, our labor being exploited? You think we'd have some quote-unquote generational wealth by now? But no, these people can, lie, cheat, steal. They do all of this right in our faces. Right in our faces. But we do nothing. We do nothing. Social mediocrity. Where's the civil disobedience? Where are those ideas that were so powerful in the culture? Where is it? We're like cattle today. We move in line to the beat of, that drum. The magistrate gets on TV, or Facebook, and says, we all have to wear a mask for 2 years. They don't say anything else. Trust the scientists. Even the scientists are wrong. Scientists can be wrong. Just because you have the title scientist, we all are scientists, to be honest. Every time I eat a goddamn meal and, have a reaction, and then change up another, switch up my diet, I'm a scientist. Experiments, theories. We're constantly theorizing and experimenting. That's something that goes on constantly. social mediocrity, the whole cancel culture. Canceling the, any image, any image, any ideas, people who you or whomever you, anyone that you deem problematic to our social development, it's canceled. So tell me, why the hell isn't Cardi B canceled? Why isn't Cardi B canceled? I mean, wet ass pussy, excuse my language, WAP. One of the number one songs in coming out of American culture. But you are canceling, Dr. Seuss and Mr. Potato Head. So Mr. Potato Head and Dr. Seuss is a problem. But wet ass pussy, woo, you can talk wet ass pussy all day long. Okay? That's a contradiction. And what's the purpose of the FDA? I thought there were regulation organizations that regulated, public broadcast. Okay? So we can turn on the TV and we can get that, Cardi B all day long. But we can't look at the Cat in the Hat or Green Eggs and Ham. Our culture is sick and dying. Our entire culture is sick and dying. And we must look at that man in the mirror, like Michael Jackson said. We must look at that man in the mirror. We must change the society. It is high time that we look in the mirror and change the society. Where are you, President Biden? It starts with you. It starts at the top. It starts with leadership. Where are you, President Biden? Where's our leader? Where's the leadership? You're the president now. You took over the presidency. Where's the leadership? We haven't seen you in 60 days since taking office. Is Nancy Pelosi running the government? Because we haven't seen Kamala Harris either. Who's running the government? Who's running the government? Where are we in America today? We have an entire population of black people in this country right now facing the loss of their housing. So we're probably looking at another great migration that's going to possibly take place as people begin to consolidate and get themselves in a position or a place of safety. When in all actuality, it's probably best, especially quote unquote under a pandemic, it's probably best to keep people positioned where they are. So if it's best to keep people positioned where they are, then it's probably high time to eliminate private property. Because if you eliminate private property, then people can now take ownership of the place they actually live in at the moment in some sense, with some sense of security. Hey, if you eliminate private property, there's a serious benefit. Like, we could talk about giving people a guaranteed income, but you can't talk about eliminating private property. No more landlords. Give people a housing assignment. And now, if you want to keep a regulated system of capitalism, you get money, upgrade your own living quarters. Okay, that is fine. Upgrade your own living quarters. You know, so if you don't want to live in a one-bedroom house or place, apartment that you own, you don't want to live in a one-bedroom and you got the resources to buy a two-bedroom home, buy a two-bedroom home. You got the resources to buy you a nice little mansion, buy a mansion. But you shouldn't be able to own a property outside of the place you live for financial gain. That should be eliminated. That's what I mean when I say eliminate private property. Eliminate the ability of, eliminate the landlord culture. That's what we're eliminating. We're eliminating landlord culture. That would be socially ethical. That would be socially ethical. Because now, people don't have to feel so pressured as they are building their nest to take care of their families. That's what the elimination of private property means. We're talking about creating a better society so that we can avoid in the future having half the people under COVID or any other pandemic that might come and hit us in the future, preventing the majority of those people being black. The reason we're dealing with a lot of these issues as black people is because of slavery. Cause and effect. We cause these problems. You said you were going to give us 40 acres of the field after slavery, but you didn't. Because you knew then that was the only way we were going to repair our culture properly. Take the knife fully out our back. But the social mediocrity that you keep us living under is why we continue to struggle socially, emotionally, financially. And the goons you place to head us, they're so comfortable in their palace that they give you the justifications you need to keep us in a position of stagnation. And that's where we are, in a position of stagnation. It's wrong. It's socially mediocre. And if we don't begin to understand that reality, we're going to continue to be in this socially mediocre place. Where you at, Biden? Where are you? You spoke so highly about systemic racism. You spoke so gallantly about this problem that you quote unquote got 80 million Americans to vote for you. More people voted in America than there are people registered to vote. But you're the president. You won. And now we're dealing with a crisis under your watch now. This crisis that we're facing is under your watch. The only crisis I'm focusing on right now is the crisis of the housing apocalypse that's on our tail. If that crisis hits our community when the quote-unquote courts open back up and all of these people who are advocating for landlords, and people start losing their homes, and that migration begins. You know, which, let's talk about science, which will affect, was it Hardy Weinberg's, evolution theory, where, when forces act on a population, right now, the status quo has been maintaining itself generation after generation after generation. And then COVID hits, and now this housing apocalypse on our, society is being acted upon. We're in the middle of a paradigm shift. Biden, let's talk science. We're in the middle of a paradigm shift. What now? What now? What do we do now in the middle of this paradigm shift? We gotta be creative, Joe Biden. You gotta be creative. I urge all of the Republican Party to step up behind this issue. We need to force this government to eliminate private property if we want to start moving in the direction of being socially ethical. It is time to be socially ethical and move away from that social mediocrity that we happen to be in the midst of. And yes, I do blame that in a large part on liberal thinking. Abby Hoffman taught us that it was okay to get high and pound our fists for revolution. He taught us that. And a lot of us, instead of understanding the seriousness of the study process, why it's so important to study. And many of us are behind the 8 ball, okay? We've been so focused on survival that we weren't in those, realms where we can be leisurely and look at and study. It's time to shake off everything and to start really focusing on changing the dynamic of America. There has to be a paradigm shift in America. And I believe the one issue, the one thing that we can all connect with and focus on as a people is the elimination of private property first. So thank you, Ellen DeGeneres. You was walking around in your mansion during COVID, your estate, having all that air to breathe by yourself. With your girlfriend, all that air to breathe by yourself. Whereas many of us, struggled in a 2-bedroom flat, or a housing project, holding on to a job down the street, holding on to a place for 30 years, all to watch us, fold or crumble down because we don't have true advocates who have a greater, deeper connection to the people and to those struggling to survive. This is one Angry Black Republican podcast. And yes, I am very angry. This is the podcast where morality meets extremism. I'm your host, B. This is episode 5 of One Angry Black Republican. Peace.